Three spine-chilling close encounters, terrifying secrets discovered in the depths of night. In the sleepy town of Maplewood, shadows seem to breathe, whispering secrets meant to be buried. Sarah Stevens, a single mother and dedicated nurse, felt the weight of those whispers crawling along the back of her neck, especially during her late-night shifts. As she navigated the dimly lit halls of the hospital, she couldn't shake an unsettling sense that something was wrong, something sinister lurking just beyond her neatly trimmed lawn. It all started uneasily enough. Flickering porch lights and strange rustling in the bushes echoed through her evenings. She'd shrug it off, blaming exhaustion, telling herself everything was just fine. Then came the reports. Missing persons, like a dark cloud descending, cast long shadows over Maplewood. Panic settled into her gut, twisting like a live wire. Sleep-deprived and anxious, she knew she had to keep her 10-year-old son Ethan safe. Yet too soon she began to worry about the overly charming Mr. Baxter, their neighbor. The man with a perfect smile seemed unnaturally interested in Ethan, his praises a little too enthusiastic, sparking a deep-seated unease in Sarah. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Later that week, when Ethan bounded into the house exhilarated, boasting about a new friend, her heart sank. The chill crawling up her spine was undeniable. Something wasn't right. As she paced around her living room, she couldn't help but keep one eye on Baxter's window, his facade of friendliness now tainted with suspicion. Fury and fear twisted together within her, pushing her to confront Baxter one stormy night. The wind howled, a mournful sound that matched her racing heart as she approached his house. Another thud sounded from within, drawing her deeper into the darkness. Then, with dread-filled curiosity, she found a hidden door in the shadows of his garden. Overgrown vines concealed a cellar, dark and damp, calling to her like a whisper. As she pulled the door open, age-old secrets lay sprawled before her like grotesque artwork. Walls lined with drawings from missing children stared back at her, each creation dripping with sorrow, a haunting legacy etched into her mind. What had Mr. Baxter ensnared beneath that ordinary surface? With every breath, a new layer of horror unfurled, each more terrifying than the last. Before she could process, the door slammed shut behind her, and the air thickened. A familiar grip held her shoulders, grounding her in a morbid reality. You shouldn't have come here. The voice was unsettlingly calm, yet sharply edged. Panic surged, her heart racing as she turned, her vision narrowing as she faced the latest twist in her descent into darkness. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she turned to face Baxter. His eyes were dark, deeper than she remembered, swirling with something that sent chills racing through her veins. The flickering light from the cellar cast shadows that danced across his face, altering his once friendly features into a grotesque mask of malice. "What do you want?" she gasped, feigning bravado, angry that her voice trembled. "Want? Oh, Sarah, you really don't understand, do you?" His smile held a sinister quality, sharp and cruel. "You stumbled into my gallery. Each piece," he gestured to the walls, "tells a story, a haunting reminder of the past. But you aren't like the others. You shouldn't be here." Panic spiked, clawing at her chest. She tried to take a step back, but his grip tightened, pinning her in place. The darkness swirled around them, a thick fog of fear pressing down, as though the very air was alive, suffocating. "You've seen their faces," he continued, looking around as if admiring his artwork. "Every stroke reflects their last moments, ethereal whispers of forgotten lives. It's beautiful, isn't it?" He looked back at her, his expression lifting, reveling in his own madness. "Let me go. I need to find Ethan." The name shot from her lips like a prayer, desperation igniting a flicker of strength within her. "Ethan?" Baxter's voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. "Oh, he's safe. For now." A satisfied grin spread across his face. "You see, he's already a part of it. He's curious, just like you were." Sarah's heart raced. Dread pooled in her stomach. She just needed to stall him, buy time. "What do you mean? He's just a boy." "He's the perfect muse, a canvas yet untouched, just like you were once. But you're here now, aren't you? You know too much, and I can't have you leaving." The wall seemed to close in, the drawings closing ranks around her like a cage made of memories.
Before she could scream, Baxter leaned closer, his breath icy against her cheek. "You'll join them. You'll become another story, a piece for the gallery. Trust me, once you've tasted this darkness, you won't want to leave."
In that moment, the tension exploded like a sudden crack of thunder. The door rattled violently behind her and then flew open, spilling in harsh light that overwhelmed the encapsulating shadows. Baxter's grip loosened for just a fraction of a second, eyes darting to the noise. That brief lapse was all Sarah needed. She shoved him back, propelled by pure adrenaline, stumbling toward the door. She could feel Baxter's rage boiling behind her, a beast set loose. "Get out!" he hissed, the calm facade shattering. "You're not leaving, not like this!" She burst into the night, panic clawing up her throat, heart pounding in sync with her footsteps. The quiet of Maplewood felt mockingly peaceful compared to the chaos behind her. She stumbled toward her house, the cool air battling the smothering heat of fear clinging to her skin. As she crashed through the door, she locked it behind herself and leaned against it, breathless. But it was her own echoing fear that whispered, "What about Ethan? Where was he?" The silence in the house pressed down hard, wrapping around her like a vine, squeezing, constricting. She turned to call for him, but the words stuck, curdling in her throat. The house was empty. Was he truly safe, or had Baxter already played his hand? Then a faint sound reached her ears, soft giggles drifting from the hallway. A chill crept up her spine. "Ethan." No answer, but the laughter continued, twirling through the darkness behind her son's bedroom door. What was going on? The question hung in the air, heavy with dread. What had Baxter done? And what other secrets lay waiting, just out of sight? Her heart sank like a stone as she moved down the dimly lit hallway toward Ethan's room. The giggles echoed, bright and wrong, bouncing off the walls like a twisted lullaby. She reached the door, hand trembling, and pressed her ear against the worn wood. Silence swallowed the laughter, as if someone had recognized her presence. "Ethan," she called, the word barely more than a whisper. The response was slow, dragging like shadows creeping toward her. "Mommy," a small voice, innocent, yet laced with something she didn't want to name. Sarah's breath hitched. She pushed the door open. The room lay in darkness, curtains drawn tight, the air thick with an unsettling chill. There was an emptiness that felt heavy, like an anchor lodged in her chest. "Ethan," she repeated, stepping inside. The giggles had stopped now, leaving an eerie quiet that thrummed in her ears. She flipped the light switch, but nothing happened. Panic rippled through her. She pulled her phone from her pocket, the weak light flickering against the walls. "Where are you?" She scanned the room, taking in the small bed with rumpled sheets, the toys scattered about as if hastily abandoned. The closet caught her eye, ajar, shadows pulling at its base. A dread slithered down her spine. "Is he in there?" Taking a deep breath, she approached, heart pounding like a drum against the silence. As she reached for the door, a sudden flurry of giggles erupted from inside, more sinister now, echoing Baxter's madness. She hesitated, pulling her hand back. "Ethan?" she called again, voice trembling. A delayed pause followed before a shadow moved, small and quick. "Mommy?" It was that sweet voice, but it felt tainted, twisted in a way that sent ice through her veins. "Open the door," she insisted, panic rising as the laughter morphed into softly murmured words. "Come play with us," a chorus of childlike voices sang from the shadows, chilling her to the bone. "Who's with you, Ethan?" The question escaped before she could reel it back. More giggles, then the voices drifted back into whispers. "Just friends." Sarah's throat closed up. Friends? Her stomach knotted. Was Baxter already inside her home, weaving dark fantasies? "Ethan, open the door, now!" She pressed her shoulder against it, gathering her strength. But the giggles turned to shrieks of laughter, echoing in a way that felt both joyous and horrifying. Her heart raced. She kicked the door, splintering wood against her boot. "Open this door!" Silence fell again, palpable and thick. Then came a soft click, the door creaking reluctantly ajar. Sarah flung it wide, ready for whatever chaos lay behind it. But the room was empty. The bed was made perfectly. Not a toy was out of place. Ethan was gone. Terror washed over her, icy fingers wrapping around her instincts. "Ethan!" she screamed, voice breaking, the name clawing up her throat. And then she heard it, the laughter again. This time it came from right behind her. She spun around, breath caught in her chest. A figure stood in the dim hallway, shadows cloaking its features. "Join us," it whispered, a voice both familiar and terrifying. "Ethan?"
The air turned electric with dread, and she backed up, desperation fueling her retreat, but the hallway kept stretching as if mocking her. "Mommy, don't be scared." The voice was sweet as honey, yet it twisted her insides. Just then, a shadow darted past. The flickering light distorted everything. Suddenly, the door to the cellar creaked open behind her. It gapped like a wide maw, hungry for something dark, something deep-rooted and despairing. Without thinking, Sarah stumbled backward toward the open door, her instincts screaming at her to run, but all the while she sensed Ethan calling her from the lure of the darkness within. "Ethan," she cried, torn between fear and love, knowing she had to make a choice. What awaited her in that yawning abyss? Would she find her son, or merely another piece for Baxter's twisted gallery? The shadows closed in. With a sudden rush, Sarah fell into the cellar, the air thick and damp like a suffocating blanket. The darkness engulfed her, swallowing the faint light from her phone. Her pulse thundered in her ears, drowning out the world above.
She clutched the phone like a lifeline, the dim beam flickering wildly, illuminating dusty shelves cluttered with forgotten knickknacks and draped in cobwebs. "Ethan?" she called out, voice cracking. The silence pressed heavy against her chest, but she swore she heard muffled laughter echoing from deep within the cellar. She hesitated, dread clawing at her heart. What if it was just her imagination? What if— "Mommy!" Ethan's voice rang out, clear and desperate from somewhere beyond the darkness. It was so close, yet it felt like it was miles away. She steadied her breath, forcing herself to push forward, aware that each step deeper into the gloom felt like an invitation to the shadows. As she ventured further, the laughter morphed into something else, a low, leering giggle that sent a chill spiraling down her spine. She turned, convinced she'd see something lurking at her back. Just shadows. The walls seemed to inch closer together, a claustrophobic grip tightening around her. "Ethan?" she called again, projecting her voice with an urgency she didn't feel. It echoed, an unsettling, mocking repetition. The air turned electric, and the world felt like it was bending. Then, against the back wall, her phone light caught something. A small figure crouched, shivering in the dim glow. Hope surged. "Ethan?" she gasped, rushing toward it. But the moment her foot hit the ground, an ominous creak broke the silence. She froze, the shadows bending like an alive thing around her. The figure twisted, and as her heart raced, she realized it wasn't Ethan at all. The creature had hollowed cheeks, eyes wide and gleaming with a predatory gleam that chilled her to the marrow. Its mouth split into a grin so wide, it seemed to stretch beyond human limits. "Not him, but we can play with you," it crooned, voice a sickly sweet melody deformed into something monstrous. Sarah staggered back, her breath hitching. "Get away from me," she screamed, but the words felt hollow as the oppressive darkness. The laughter rolled back, layered like a sinister symphony under the surface. Then she saw it, a flicker of movement farther down the cellar, another shadow darting past, too quick, too fluid. "Ethan," she yelled, desperation clawing at her throat as she spun around. The laughter crescendoed, echoing through the cellar like a twisted song. With a jolt, she remembered her phone. She raised it high, the light casting stark shadows, revealing the monstrosity before her in all its grotesque glory. It recoiled, momentarily blinded, and Sarah seized the chance to sprint past it, heart in her throat. Every part of her screamed to flee, to escape to the sanctuary of the world above, but the pull of her son was too strong. "Ethan," she called, pushing deeper into the shadowy abyss. Yet the deeper she went, the more the air crackled with malevolence. The laughter, now a cacophony of voices, swarmed around her. "Join us, we're waiting for you," they sang. Her stomach twisted as she rounded a corner, the cellar widening into a chamber festooned with forgotten relics. Old toys lay scattered like bones, remnants of other lost souls. And then she froze. In the center, illuminated by a ghostly glow, stood Ethan. But something was off. He was smiling, his eyes wide and unblinking, a grin that never quite reached the sorrow she knew. "Mommy, I found my friends," he chirped, gesturing at the shadows lurking just beyond the light's grasp. "Ethan, no." The horror crashed around her, engulfing the last remnants of hope. And as the shadows moved, she knew the darkest games were just beginning. Would she have the strength to pull him back from the brink, or would she be swallowed by the very thing she feared? The shadows crept closer, ready to claim them both. "Ethan, please!" Sarah's voice cracked as she took a step closer, but the shadows melted into a swirling mass around her son, fragments of laughter spiraling like a sinister gale. Ethan's eyes gleamed too brightly, a sheen of something unnatural, and it sent a shudder through her. "Look!" He pointed at a distorted figure just beyond the reach of her phone's light, its outline shifting like smoke. "They want to play!" "No games," Sarah barked,
pushing back the sense of dread that threatened to swallow her whole. She needed to shake him free from whatever enchanted hold these things had on him. "You need to come with me right now." The shadows fluttered like moths, absorbing the light and spreading outwards, creating grotesque shapes that loomed over her, closing in. They whispered, "Stay, stay with us." The warmth of her courage flickered like the dying light of her phone. Sarah gritted her teeth and forced herself to move. "Ethan!" She reached for him, but every step felt like wading through molasses. "We have to go, please. I love you." With a sudden clarity, Ethan's smile faltered, the joy draining from his expression, engulfed by confusion. "But Mom," the innocence in his voice pierced her heart. "They've given me so many sweet things." "No, they're lying," Sarah shouted, the fear coiling tighter in her chest. "You're their prize, Ethan. You have to listen to me." His gaze shifted, glancing at the shadows that danced around him, entreating him with their seductive whispering. "But I like it here. I don't want to leave my friends." Her heart sank at the sight of him, so close, yet powerful forces pulling him away. "No, you don't know what they want. This is a trap." She lunged forward, stretching her arm out, desperate to bridge the distance. Suddenly, the figure closest to Ethan, no longer a mere shadow, lunged forward, its form becoming a grotesque mix of childlike features twisted into something wicked. Each movement set off a crescendo of sinister giggles, echoing through the chamber. Nightmarish eyes stared back at Sarah, and the creature opened its mouth wide, revealing rows of jagged teeth. "Come play with us, forever. Get back."
She yelled, swinging her phone as if it were a weapon to ward off the encroaching terror. The light flickered, and Sarah took another daring step. Her pulse pounded violently in her ears, a frantic drum of survival clashing against the eerie whispers. "Ethan, I'm coming! Hold on!" She pushed through the fear, her legs propelling her forward. The childlike laughter morphed into a discordant screech, shaking her resolve. Each echoed sound created ripples of horror that tightened around her throat. But she had to reach him. She had to pull him back. Ethan's face twisted with confusion and fear as he looked at the monstrous thing beside him. "Mommy, I'm scared!" Just then, the shadows closed in around Sarah, their laughter drowning out her voice, snatching away her breath. The walls shifted, closing, squeezing her against the very darkness she had fought to escape. Her heart raced as she reached out, fingers brushing against Ethan's, desperation sparking hope. With one last heart-clenching scream, she lunged for him. "Ethan!" But as she grasped his hand, darkness erupted, twisting around them both, the cacophony of shadows pulling them into a void of gnashing teeth and longing cries. In that moment, everything went black. The echo of a heartbeat thundered in the silence, and then a soft whimper, pulling at her consciousness like a distant memory. A moment later, she found herself standing, hovering, above an endless void, the chamber now transformed into a swirling mass of darkness and pale faces trapped in shadows, their mouths still laughing. Glimmers of light flared in the distance, drawing her eyes. She could almost hear them calling. But beneath it all, a low voice rumbled through the tumultuous void. "You have chosen Sarah." The darkness shifted again, and the laughter intensified, merging into a sinister symphony that enveloped her. What had she just stepped into? And where was Ethan? She felt the cold fingers of despair creeping up her spine as she braced herself for what would come next. Would she be able to save him from whatever dark fate lay waiting in the depths of the cellar? As Sarah floated in the endless void, a chilling realization gripped her heart. She wasn't alone. The shadows whispered, clustering forms around her, their faces blurred and distorted, yet still bearing that unsettling laughter. Each laugh felt like a dagger, piercing through the veil of her sanity. Ethan's whimper echoed nearby. Panic surged within her as she spun, frantic to locate him. "Ethan!" she cried, her voice swallowed by the gaping darkness. The fragments of light shimmered in the distance, pulsing as if it held a heartbeat of its own. Were those places of safety, or traps masked as beacons? "Mommy," his voice was so distant yet clear. "Help me!" Her lungs constricted as fear entwined around her, squeezing harder with every fleeting second. She reached for the light beyond, every instant urging her to take a step closer.
But something monumental pulled her back. It wasn't just fear, it was the deep longing of something feral, wrapping around her soul like coils of a serpent. The shadows coiled tighter, breathing in unison, drawing closer, their forms shifting like smoke. Each shift was accompanied by soft, inviting whispers, promising safety and joy. "Stay with us, little one," they said, their voices laced with a dark allure. "We'll show you wonders beyond your understanding." "No!" Sarah screamed, her voice breaking. She fought against the suffocating grip of despair, steering herself toward the source of Ethan's voice. It sounded so broken, so fragile. The very foundation of her motherhood urged her forward, igniting a flicker of hope within her. With great determination, she pushed against the fuzzy tendrils of darkness. "Ethan, I'm coming!" Her heart raced as she felt the shadows straining against her, clawing to pull her back into their embrace. In a surge of adrenaline, she propelled forward, her limbs finally responding. The light ahead brightened, illuminating a path riddled with glimmers of what once was. A family she remembered, laughter shared, daylight dreams. It fueled her determination, a rebellion against the dark. "Mommy!" Ethan's voice, louder now, pierced through her thoughts. The shadowy figures around her shrieked in displeasure, their laughter spiraling into a hollow wail as they struggled to hold on to their prey. "Stay away!" she yelled, swatting at the shadows, her fists curled, ready to fight, the only thought racing through her mind being her son. As she bolted forward, the darkness struck back, tendrils wrapping around her wrists. Each tug threatened to pull her into the abyss, whispered promises of surrender brushing against her ears. "Join us, Sarah! Join us!" Breathless, she finally broke free from their grasp, stumbling into a pocket of light. The moment her foot hit the ground, she found herself back in the cellar, her phone flickering in and out like a dying star. "Ethan!" The shadows lined the walls, slinking further away, their laughter faltering, hesitant. She barely registered the movement in the corner, the very shift of air that heralded his presence. Ethan stood there, head tilted in confusion, strands of darkness lingering on his skin. "Mommy!" His voice wavered, echoing in her fear. She rushed toward him, her arms flinging wide. "I'm here, Ethan. Grab my hand." But as she reached him, the realization struck like a cold slap. The shadows had quieted, enveloping them both, and in that instant, a clarity flooded through the chaos. They weren't done with them yet. Around them, the air crackled with tension, and the space shifted again, revealing faces and moans of lost souls, melting into one. "You have joined us, Sarah," a voice groaned, silk and ice all at once, emanating from the shadows cocooning them. "It is your choice now." Sarah's heart roared with a mixture of hope and dread.
As the suffocating grip tightened again, she felt Ethan's small hand slip from hers, the coldness of the void tugging him away. "No!" she screamed, terror lancing through her veins as she lunged for him. But the shadows had awakened. They were hungry, anticipating a feast of despair and desperation. "Mommy, help me!" Would she make it in time to rescue him from the dark grasp closing in around them both? The shadows surged with a violent intensity, enveloping them tighter. And just when all seemed lost, a fragment of light burst through, incandescent and blinding. What hope awaits them against the endless night? The light blazed brightly, blurring the edges of reality. Sarah shielded her eyes instinctively, a warm pulse igniting hope within her heart. But the shadows writhed angrily, twisting and contorting like serpents denied their prey. They hissed and recoiled, their laughter morphing into growls of frustration as the light bore down on them. It pressed against the darkness, a war between luminescence and shadows. "Mommy!" Ethan's voice cut through the chaos, howling in desperation. She fought against the tightening embrace of darkness that threatened to swallow her whole. Sarah lunged once more, reaching for Ethan, heart racing against nightmares crooning promises that tugged at her will. "I'm almost there!" But as she reached through the tumultuous veil, the shadows thickened, suffocating her resolve. "Come home," they whispered, a sinister melody entwined with seductive promises. "You belong with us." "No," she spat, fury igniting a fire deep within her chest. She mustered all her strength, whatever remained of her spirit, to surge towards her son. The swirling light flickered, illuminating a narrow passage,
a tunnel through the void. "Ethan!" she cried, her voice raw. For what felt like eons, she pushed through the shadows, clawing her way forward, desperation fueling each step. But the path wavered, ghostly echoes of the past taunting her. Suddenly, the shadows shrieked, a cacophony of torment, as the brightness intensified around her, and just as abruptly, the illumination extinguished, plunging her into a suffocating darkness once more. The air thickened, biting cold enveloping her. "Mommy!" The cry was now directly in front of her, sharp and desperate. It snapped her focus. She gasped, feeling the chill of fear slithering down her spine as she turned to Ethan. "Ethan, please, where are you?" Panic twisted her insides like a vice, but there was no reply. A suffocating silence replaced his frantic cries, the shadows licking at her heels. They were relentless. They threatened to drag her back as laughter echoed in the distance, a sound so jubilant it felt almost mocking. "Come join us. We will keep you safe." The whispers were now closer, the tones soft, yet dripping with malice. "Don't you understand? The light is a lie. Here, we can be together forever." "No!" she screamed again, conviction cascading through her voice.
It stung her throat, but that was nothing compared to the clenching fear within. Just as her hope began to fade, she stepped down, her foot striking against something cold and metallic, a stair beneath her. With bated breath, she lunged down the staircase, cascading deeper into the unknown, the shadows howling in outrage behind her. One thump followed by another echoed in the oppressive silence as she descended. The air thickened as she reached the bottom, an ancient door looming in the darkness, its wood rotting and ominous in appearance. She pressed against it, every fiber in her being screaming to turn back. Yet survival instincts clawed stronger. She had to find Ethan, had to push through whatever darkness awaited on the other side. With a great heave, she swung the door open. The room within glowed with an eerie radiance, illuminating ethereal forms flitting around, faces contorting in unhappy agony. But amidst that horror, standing tall, was Ethan, outfitted in splashes of darkness, his eyes wide and searching. "Mommy, please, it hurts." He reached for her, but the shadows began creeping back, howling in unison, clawing forward. "Stay back!" Sarah screamed, pushing herself forward. She was so close, but the figures around him whispered urgently, warning her away. The shadows writhed, and the room shook with a low rumble, the air vibrating with unease. Only one way forward. She barreled toward him, driven by sheer desperation. "Ethan, grab my hand!" But just as he reached out, the ground cracked open, swallowing her cries. The void yawned wide, pulling them both toward an infinite darkness. With one last breath, she gripped Ethan's hand. Suddenly, a roar erupted from the shadows, an entity forming from the swirling mass, eyes glinting with hunger. "You don't belong here. You belong to the dark." And just like that, her world distorted, as shadows swallowed them whole. What awaited them as they spiraled deeper into the abyss? Would they find freedom, or become part of the darkness forever? The sensation of falling enveloped Sarah, a weightless plunge into the chaos of shadows. Clutching Ethan tightly, her heart pounded like a war drum, each thud echoing in the abyss. The air felt thick, cold as grave dust, suffocating the breath in her lungs. She squeezed her son's small hand, feeling the tremors coursing through him. With a sickening jolt, they landed, not on solid ground, but on a carpet of mildew and despair. The oppressive blackness swirled around them, the shadows stirring with renewed fervor. Desperate whispers clawed at her ears, drowning out any rational thought. "Join us. Simply surrender." "No." Sarah clenched her teeth, fury igniting anew. She tugged Ethan to his feet, searching the choking darkness for a sign of hope. "We won't give in." But the room, whatever it was, felt alive, a wretched entity that pulsed with their fear, feeding off it. Flickering shapes darted in and out of her peripheral vision, their ghastly faces twisted in anguish. She instinctively shielded Ethan behind her, heart racing, instinct screaming that danger lurked just beyond the shadows. "Mommy, I'm scared," Ethan whispered, his voice trembling. "I know, baby, I know." She swallowed against the tightness in her throat. "But we will find a way out, I promise."
The shadows twisted around them in response to her defiance. A low growl vibrated through the air, an entity demanding its due. Sarah instinctively took a step back, and the ground shook beneath them. Cracks splintered along the floor, the shadows writhing like serpents eager to strike. A sudden flash of recollection pierced through her fear, a moment offered by the light before. "We need to keep moving," she yelled, adrenaline surging. They couldn't stay here, they had to break free. Together they dashed deeper into the inky void, navigating through the grip of obscurity. They stumbled over debris, shattered glass from forgotten memories, remnants of people who had once been, now just echoes. "Mommy, look!" Ethan pointed ahead, his small fingers trembling. A faint glimmer flickered in the darkness, the faintest hint of light. It was not the blinding glow of safety, rather it was a sickly silver, pulsating like a heartbeat, promising escape but laced with danger. "Stay close," she barked, dragging Ethan along. Each step felt like stepping deeper into a nightmare where time stood still. As they approached, the glimmer solidified into a mirror, long and cracked, reflecting their figures but twisted, distorted. Sarah's heart sank. What lay behind the surface? "What's in there?" Ethan's voice quivered. "Let's find out." Fear wrestled with determination as she touched the cold surface. The glass rippled like water, and in that instant, memories flashed before her, distant screams, laughter fading into sorrow, a child's face grimacing in despair. "No, no," she gasped, recognizing the faces swirling through the shards, a telling picture of hope lost. "Ethan, don't look!" But it was too late. Ethan's fascination was ensnared. The shadows surged, a tidal wave of wretched souls clawing at the surface of the mirror, their disembodied whispers echoing Sarah's own thoughts. "Come join us. Relinquish your pain." "No," she screamed, feeling her grip on Ethan slipping. The temperature dropped suddenly, breath visible in the air like specters of despair manifesting around them. The shadows lunged, reaching for Ethan, their fingers like ice, eager to snatch away hope. A primal scream erupted from Sarah's throat as she instinctively stepped forward, ready to face whatever horror awaited her, willing to risk everything. The room quaked with a cacophony of cries, anguish rising like an all-consuming tide. But the mirror began to warp further, revealing something darker, the truth of the darkness around them.
What twisted secrets awaited them within the depths of that glass? Would facing their fears be the key to escape, or would they be drawn into the haunting void forever? The mirror pulsed with a life of its own, sending waves of dread coursing through Sarah's veins. Shadows coiled tighter around her and Ethan, ready to pounce the moment they faltered. Her heart raced with a primal instinct to protect, to flee, but the icy fingers of despair held her in place. "Ethan!" she cried, yanking him back against her just as the chilling tendrils reached the tips of her shoes. His warmth pressed against her, a stark contrast to the cold that seeped from the swirling void. "We have to move." With each trembling step away from the mirror, a new horror loomed. The writhing shadows twisted into forms, creatures crafted from the fabric of fear itself. They bore faces of anguish, eyes wide and pleading, mouthing silent screams. Sarah ached to look back, but she knew better than to yield to the cravings of her curiosity. "What are they?" Ethan's voice quivered, his innocence shimmered in the darkness. "Just shadows, Ethan. They can't hurt us if we don't let them." But her defiance trembled with uncertainty. She could feel their anger, the shadows, hearing their cries laced with her own fears. Each whisper gripped her stomach, churning it like a storm. "Mommy, I can't breathe." Panic surged within her. "Just keep holding my hand." She tightened her grip, leading him through the darkened maze that twisted endlessly in all directions, a labyrinth of despair crafted by some malevolent force. Up ahead, another faint glimmer pierced the gloom, brighter this time, flickering like a firefly teasing their hopes. "This way," she urged, desperation fueling her gait. As they rushed forward, a deafening roar erupted from the shadows, a sound like the wailing of 1,000 lost souls. The air vibrated, the ground trembled beneath her feet, and Sarah stumbled, but she caught herself just in time. "Mommy!" Ethan cried, his voice rising in terror. "I won't let go!" she shouted over the cacophony, forcing her legs to move faster. They approached the strange light, and once again it solidified into a figure cloaked in silvery mist. It seemed both inviting and horrifying. "Help me!" it moaned, its lost eyes locking onto Sarah. She froze, the strange entity's eyes resonating with an eerily familiar spark. "Who are you?"
Sarah summoned her courage, the malevolent whispers quieting just enough for her to hear her own voice over the rush of her heartbeat. "Save us," the entity hissed, reaching its translucent hands toward her. No, Sarah felt her mind fracturing under the weight of temptation. If this creature was the answer, then what nightmares lay in surrendering? Instinctively, she pulled Ethan closer. "We need to run, now." The figure's expression shifted from pleading to rage, its countenance morphing into something monstrous.
The air thickened with the malevolence that oozed from it, as if it were drawing strength from her hesitation. Shadows curled back, attempting to reclaim their victim, hungry for despair. Sarah felt her energy waning, her resolve slipping like sand through her fingers. "We can't stay here!" She turned back, forcing her feet to propel her forward. But the shadows surged again, multiplying, howling as they coalesced into a wall, trapping them. The whispers intensified, a wall of voices merging into a single terrifying demand. "Join us, or suffer." Ethan cried out, his small voice breaking through the turmoil. "Mommy, I don't want to go with them." The truth ignited a fierce protectiveness within Sarah. "I won't let them take you. We've come this far." Gripping her son tightly, she slammed her eyes shut, an instant of clarity crashing over her. Invoking the fiery spirit that had brought her to this moment, she bellowed, "You will not take us! We choose to live!" The shadows recoiled, the howl of their fury drowning out every other sound. For a fleeting moment, the figure paused, confusion etched across its face. Sarah's determination ignited around her like a shield, pushing back against the shadow's grasp. But just as Sarah felt the tide turn, the mirror pulsated again, reflecting their desperation. The surface began to ripple violently, revealing a nightmarish labyrinth of faces, people forever frozen in despair. What would happen if she broke that mirror? Would it set the trapped souls free, or unleash something more sinister? In that moment of indecision, the darkness swelled, threatening to consume her completely. Would taking the risk lead to salvation, or would it seal their doom forever? In the heart of the darkness, Sarah stood firm, adrenaline flooding her veins. The mirror pulsed erratically, reflecting her own terrified face, mingling with countless souls lost in their torment. She could feel them crying out for help, and for one sickening moment, the shadows seemed to hush, waiting for her decision. "Ethan, listen to me," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos. "We're going to break that mirror. It might be our only chance." Fearful determination flickered in her eyes, an ember refusing to die. "Mommy, what if it's dangerous?" Ethan's voice trembled, but he squeezed her hand tighter, grounding her resolve. "I know, baby, but if we don't try, we might lose ourselves in this darkness forever." The shadows around them writhed, sensing her resolve, and hunger surged within their depths. In a blast of courage, Sarah sprinted towards the mirror. The shadows lashed around her, trying to pull her back. She could hear the whispers swell. Don't fight us, join us." They were a symphony of despair, each note resonating with the promise of eternal safety in exchange for her own free will. But with Ethan at her side, she couldn't falter. "Now!" she yelled, and without hesitation, she thrust her shoulder against the mirror's cold surface. It rippled, resisting her, but she pressed harder, feeling a spark of power course through her, ignited by the love for her son. A shattering sound erupted as the glass finally cracked, sharp shards bursting into the air like fireworks. In that moment of chaos, a surge of blinding light spewed forth, illuminating the entire void, dispelling the shadows that clung to them. Screams erupted as the dark entities recoiled, trapped eternally by their own wickedness. Ethan clung to her tightly, wide-eyed as they were enveloped in the radiant glow. It streamed from the broken mirror, pulling them forward through the shards of light. Each piece had a reflection, showing glimpses of moments stolen, lives interrupted. But as Sarah felt the warmth wash over her, she clung to the hope flickering like a flame within her chest. "Mommy!" Ethan cried, as the light grew brighter and the darkness began to dissolve. They were being whisked away from the depths, with every inch they moved closer to the light. In a heartbeat, they were standing on solid ground again, outside, in front of their home, breathless. The night sky sparkled with stars, and the air felt cool and refreshing, a cleansing of the agony they had endured. "Ethan!" Her voice broke as she dropped to her knees, pulling him into a fierce embrace. Relief washed over her, her heart hammering wildly. "Mom, we made it!" he exclaimed, his voice a sweet melody of joy and disbelief. "Don't ever scare me like that again," Sarah sobbed, the weight of terror draining away, leaving only gratitude in its place. As the shadows receded into distant memory, the light shining around them began to dim, but vibrant warmth lingered.
The horrors they had experienced would forever mark them, but now Sarah vowed to protect Ethan fiercely. "Mommy, what happened?" Ethan asked, his innocent curiosity swirling in the fresh air. "We fought the darkness, remember?" She brushed the hair from his forehead, her touch tender yet firm. "And we'll always fight it together." They stood, a deep hush settling over their surroundings, a calm that promised new beginnings. "Do you think they're gone forever?" Ethan asked, glancing back toward the house, where shadows had once spun tales of terror. "They're not our concern anymore," Sarah replied, with conviction that ignited a flicker of hope within both of them. "We'll keep our story bright." The night stretched out before them, fast and open, beckoning. With each step away from darkness, they embraced the dawn of a new day together, souls intertwined against whatever might come next. As they walked hand in hand, Sarah felt the tangle of fear unraveling, replaced by a vibrant pulse of life. She whispered a vow into the cool night air, confident that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together.
And somewhere in the shadows, a faint echo of laughter drifted away, but it held no power over them anymore. Life awaited them, full of light and possibility. Thank you for sticking through this chilling journey with us. Now it's time for you to join our family even closer. You need to subscribe now. Don't miss out. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help boost our community. Flood the comments section with your thoughts. What did you think of Sarah's harrowing journey? What were your theories on the shadows? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who'd love this thrilling conclusion. Your support is what keeps this adventure alive.